Hello, welcome back to Shri Views. I recently completed 7 years living in the United States and I knew I wanted to make a video about that, but the first time I started thinking about it, I was thrown for a loop because there was just so much to think about and I didn't know how to condense that. You see, the first thing that happened was my mind went immediately to where did the time go? Am I wasting my life? I'm getting older and the passage of time is something that we can't control and all of these thoughts. But as I settled down a bit, I realized there were a lot of things that I learned, a lot of milestones that I've achieved, and there's a long way to go after this as well. I started my life in the US the first 2 years in grad school, and that was a very seamless transition from going from college to grad school. It was just a continuation of the student life. But once that got done and I went into my first job in the industry, I was faced with the first major question of life, and that was, what are you if not a student? Because about 2 decades of my life had gone into the same routine of the education being the primary goal, the primary task of life, and the schooling and coming home, that becomes a loop in and of itself, whether it be school or high school, college and grad school. It was the same thing. Go to the university, take lectures, come back, do the homework and so on. And that takes up so much of your life that there's not a lot apart from that I had cultivated in my personal experience. And I would say that's a big factor in just the Indian education system itself, where everything that you do is divided into curricular activities and extracurricular activities. So you're still thinking through the lens of education, right? You're thinking about your resume, your CV, and you're thinking about what can you do outside of just the studies that will make you look like a good employee. And maybe this is a bit of a cynical take on it, but that's just my opinion. And once I passed out of grad school, I realized, what is the rest of my personality? Everything that I had done so far was with the express goal of gaining an education and gaining a job. And now I have those things. What other than that? What do you do for fun? It's a casual question that comes up in interviews or just in workplace conversations. And initially I had a bit of a difficult time coming up with an answer that wasn't just, I like reading, I like doing like going for hikes or going on walks or some of the generic answers. And I realized a lot of us have that issue of, now that you're in the world, acting as an adult, as a financially independent entity, what do you do from there? Where is the rest of your personality? And a lot of people have taken the time and the effort to cultivate different facets of their personality. Whereas in my experience, I feel like I came out of the education system a little less faceted, a little bit more two-dimensional, if I can say so myself. And that's what brings me to the second thing that I'd like to talk about, and that's creating an identity for yourself. One of the major habits that I had gotten into when I moved to the US was maintaining a journal or a diary and writing blogs. That really helped me process the different thoughts that I had in my mind and the different things that I was going through, both good and challenging. And that really helped me cultivate an analytical mindset. I could think about things, I could look at them from a independent perspective. And because if you publish some blogs out in the world, you get comments, you get feedback from people. So that really helped me process that, and that became a major part of my identity. I started thinking of myself as the writer. That was the one thing that I was really good at, and so on. And if you've watched my video, Giving and Receiving Feedback, in that I talk about a story where I received a bit of a scathing feedback from one of my professors, where he said, your writing needs work. And in that email, that identity that I had crafted for myself was kind of taken away from me in a way. But I still think of that as a positive, because overall I think about these labels we like to apply to ourselves, and I realized that I need to cultivate even more facets of my personality. I had to cultivate more skills, and I had to take that feedback into account to make myself better and not just think of myself as a writer, but maybe something like more of a content creator or more of just this being one of the things that I do rather than it being the entire personality. And I'm glad I got that lesson because it helped me look beyond the box that I had made for myself and look further. Maybe I am more, maybe I can be beyond that. Point number 3 that I'd like to talk about is in these 7 years, I was able to validate my own personality. You see, growing up, my personality as an introvert or a staid, less talkative person was always invalidated by certain social factors. I would say my parents, my teachers, everyone else had my best interests in mind when they used to say things like, I need to be more of a go-getter or I need to have smartness. I think this is best said in Marathi. They used to say, "अरे दुष्यंत हे असं बावळट असून चालत नाही रे, smartness लागतो." And to translate, that means you can't be such a simpleton or such a moron. You have to have some smartness. So here, that's the conflation between being an introvert versus being an extrovert. And when being an introvert is considered as being a simpleton or being a moron, whereas having that extroverted quality makes you a smart person. And there's also other things like you have to be a bit more cunning and you have to be a bit more opportunistic. And while all of those things aren't always bad in and of themselves, it's always felt like I was wrong for being who I was. And being able to validate my personality, being able to find a job, being able to work on that job and being able to be recognized by the greater people in the industry, that helped me validate that yes, as an introverted person who doesn't have the so-called smartness that everybody used to say I should have, I'm still able to succeed in my life. And lastly, point number 4, that's being okay with the choices that I made in my life. This one is probably the cause of the knee-jerk reaction that I talked about in the beginning of where did all this time go? I've wasted my life. Have I wasted my life or not? That's the questions that come into your mind when in media and on social media everywhere you see a particular style of life being marketed to you, saying that, oh, you should be traveling or you should go out in clubs and you should take all these pictures and you should have this high life, kind of high society life. And I always found the things that brought me the most joy was being able to cultivate my own hobbies, my own things like writing, and in recent years making videos or going into Toastmasters and trying to learn public speaking, or even things that are considered boring and domestic, like collecting small trinkets and arranging them in my room, or being neat and tidy and keeping the room clean and just having my own personal sanctuary, the inner sanctum that is always pristine and in order. That was the real thing that brought me joy. And it wasn't going to some tourist spot, or it wasn't about going to the clubs and so on. Again, I used to feel that having these life choices is wrong and invalid because everybody else is doing these things and checking them off from their checklist and all this stuff, and I'm sitting here in my room or cleaning my room or arranging things in my own space and doing those kinds of things. And does that mean I don't deserve to gain happiness from these things? And is that high life, high society life the only way to get happiness? And that's again an external pressure that has pervaded everybody's life, I would say. When I first came into this country, I was in my early 20s and everything was teed up for me perfectly to lead that sort of life of enjoyment and frivolousness that everybody said I should be leading. And I completely didn't do any of those things. My life didn't pan out in that sense, right? I don't have that fancy lifestyle. I have a very simple way of living and I have a very simple joy that I get from doing the simple things that I like doing. I have to keep telling myself that it's completely valid. My personality is valid. The things that I like are valid against this sea, this torrential downpour of different pressures that this system is trying to put on me. I think back about the things that I did do. I did get a master's degree. I did start working in a field that I was really interested in, and I'm slowly but surely gaining a lot more experience and gaining a lot more foothold in this business. And those are completely valid things to focus on in your life. And even though I don't have the social life, I didn't have all those parties or all those different things, me in my room, in my apartment, in my house, just existing in that inner sanctum of space, that is a completely valid way to live your life. In the end, I did what made me happy, and I would have it no other way. This was a bit of a rambling video, but it's something that I needed to get off my chest. It's something that I've been wrestling with in my mind for quite a while, and only now I have the clarity to talk about it a bit more. So thank you for watching and listening. I'll see you next time.